You know, I really can't believe that we're at the point with the renaissance of strategy RPGs and turn based strategy in general that we actually have subdivisions of genres with their own indie titles within the overall genre, such as Into the Breach, Metal Slug Tactics, Tactical Breach Wizards, and this new edition. Today, we are talking about a newly released indie title, Dark Pact, that I think will have a lot to offer for fans of this subsection of the genre. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including my coverage of newly released indie strategy titles and strategy RPGs such as Dark Pact, the subject of this video, then a like on the video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. And of course, as always, thank you to all of my channel supporters through YouTube memberships and Patreon. You can see all of their names scrolling by at the end of this video. And if you would like to join to directly support the channel, then you will get different benefits such as like some behind the scenes glances, occasionally some early access to different projects and videos, and access to the monthly Q&A that I definitely remember to do every single month. So, bing! Big point in my favor there. Let's go! So, with all of that said, what exactly is Dark Pact? Right off its face, it's something that you're going to be pretty familiar with. You've got grid-based, square-based combat. You have a few select party members, each of which level up and learn different skills that they're going to be able to utilize to deal direct damage to enemies, move them around, provide different beneficial effects, things like that. And you have a linear campaign that takes you from mission to mission with different objectives that you need to take on to be able to move to the next mission. All very straightforward. Now, something that makes Dark Pact stand out a lot is the fact that you do have a large party of NPCs that not only you need to protect, but that also act in their own defense and will deal damage and push enemies around for you, which adds a lot of dynamic combat and motion and overall feeling of life and action to every map that you're on. And that's immediately one of the selling points of Dark Pact to me. You know, it's one thing when you're going enemy phase, player phase, you move all your guys, they move all their guys, you watch and see what happens, yada, yada, yada. One unit moving at a time. Okay, who's attacking here? Oh, this guy's got an iron sword attacking my axe user. That could be a problem. Like, you know what that formula looks like. And Dark Pact avoids that sort of sameness by having things just happen. It just goes. Like, you can watch it in action, and once you decide your moves and then the NPCs and the enemy units start moving, things just start popping off at high speed. And it's really cool to see in action. It feels a little bit more like a live action game, even though it's not, and that's kind of interesting. I really appreciate what the dev Crimson Gaze has managed to pull off here in that regard. Now, the big focus of each of these missions is surviving and defense. You're not necessarily trying to eliminate all enemies, although sometimes you are. Your main goal is to last through all of the different turns and it varies from mission to mission that you have available to you, while also keeping each and every single allied NPC alive, and yes, that gets just as daunting as you might expect. Some of these NPCs are simple miners that just like have a pickaxe and maybe will be able to defend themselves, most likely cannot. Some of them are soldiers, royal guardsmen, things like that will actually move around and help you fight back, which is extremely useful. And overall, you're going to have to navigate around whatever formations they have on hand to be able to get your objectives handled. This can make for a very interesting and sometimes rather annoying, I gotta say, gameplay loop, where you're trying your best to mitigate any sort of extra damage or maneuver into the best positions possible, only to find that an NPC has moved into a position that is just not good for you, that disrupts your plan, or that you have a very hard time working around. But fortunately, the game does allow you to very easily rewind, reset, etc., so you can try different things. So it's not too terrible in that regard. It's not like you're losing tons of time to actions like that. To facilitate this gameplay, you do have a lot of different options available to you. Our main character is a fire witch that has the ability to not only deal damage, but push enemies and blocks around to deal damage or just maneuver things. You have this cute little fox creature that doesn't really do any damage at all, but is actually really good at taunting enemies around to move them in positions that you need them to, or even allies if you want, as well as dashing through targets to push big lines. Lots of maneuverability here, which actually winds up being extremely important for versatility. You then have your loyal knight companion, who does a lot of just brute strength damage. This is really one of the biggest damage dealers in the game, other than one nuke ability that the witch has. And he's really great for just saying, I need something to die or to not be anywhere near where it currently is, and he can make that happen for you, which is great. Finally, you have your shonen protagonist here, Lancelot, who has a little bit of a mix of everything. He can be speedy, he's versatile, he's got ranged attacks, he can push enemies, he can deal damage. He's pretty much your pinch hitter. Whenever you need something done, he can probably get it done for you. So I often found myself using him last just to be able to clean up any major issues that I found myself running into that the other party members could not deal with. As far as I got in the game, these were the only 4 party members that were available, but even so, every mission as you level up, you do get a bunch of different abilities that become available to you, which can be very dramatic in terms of how much power and overall versatility they bring to your party. So things do manage to stay very fresh. For example, when you get Lancelot's boomerang ability, when you get into the volcano area, you suddenly have a whole new world of possibilities opened up to you as you're now dealing tons of damage to enemies, pushing them into lava, pushing them into each other, refreshing your actions. Like, it can get pretty wild with the ways that you can stack together kills and just clear out huge swathes of enemies with one go, which is really, really fun. As far as the different enemies and maps are concerned, you do have a good amount of variety here. There's all sorts of basic goblins, orcs, different sorts of spiders and monsters, rats, things like that, and each one does have a different style of combat that it engages in. Big orcs and trolls, for example, are extremely beefy and can deal a lot of damage, but are very slow and are very obvious with where they're going to be doing their attacks, so you can largely push them around to make sure that they can actually hit enemies that you need to have killed, rather than hitting your guys and giving you a game over. Other targets like spiders are quite a bit more annoying, as they're able to actually web things and prevent them from moving, which can obviously be hugely detrimental for you, or slimes, which will just continue to split and create more of themselves, which will very, very quickly lead to you being overwhelmed if you don't deal with them early, so that's definitely a priority target. I do really appreciate the enemy variety here. Every single time I saw reinforcements spawning in and I could see what different type of enemy it was going to be, it really made me stop and think, okay, what do I have in my arsenal that's actually going to allow me to deal with that enemy type, and how is that going to really make me change what my plan is for the following turns? And that really is a huge aspect of Dark Pact in general. The ability to plan ahead and make sure that you have resources on hand and positioning squared away to handle not just what you're looking at for the current turn, but potentially for future turns is absolutely massively important, and that becomes only more impactful as you get further into the game. You deal with bigger groups of enemies, more scary enemies, and eventually even boss characters. Speaking of boss characters, this is where Dark Pact not only shines, but also gets the most frustrating for me in a mind-bending kind of way. Let's talk about the Gazer for a second here. This guy is a right pain in the ass. It's a very, very interesting boss, as he alternates between 2 different beam weapons, where he'll either shoot something that then ricochets off to the left and will continue to ricochet off of anything that it hits until it hits a wall, or a beam that ricochets off to the right and does the same thing. So the idea is that you need to maneuver the boss, enemies, and different types of terrain, like treasure chests, into a position to ricochet his beams back into himself to very quickly kill him, as otherwise your regular attacks deal very little damage. You can whittle him down over time, but the likelihood that you're going to be able to do so with your regular attacks before your different soldiers and NPCs get overwhelmed and you lose is very unlikely. So you really need to make the most of being able to shoot his lasers back into him. This gets really interesting when you start thinking, okay, so I can have this beam shoot down, and then it'll ricochet left into this enemy, which will then send it up into this treasure chest, and then it'll go right across the room into my guy. Crap. Okay, well, that's going to immediately kill me, so I need to move him out of the way, but if I do that, then it's going to hit one of the NPCs, which will also kill him. So I need to move my guy to then move the NPC out of the way to hit a treasure chest, but then it goes south, and oh god, now it's going to hit an enemy that ricochets it into one of the other NPCs. You can see where this starts to get really complex really quickly, and it can, if you're not really wired for thinking this way, as I am not, it can very quickly get frustrating. But if you are wired this way, or even if you have patience and can muddle through it like I did, then it does get extremely rewarding when you suddenly find the exact path forward that you need and all the pieces slot into place and you get the big W. And it's very, very satisfying to watch the laser beams go off and ricochet around the room, and it really hammers home the strength that Dark Pact can bring to the table. It does, of course, also emphasize some of the frustration that you can wind up running into when NPCs and enemies just move into positions that you really can't plan for in any way and can completely throw off all of your carefully laid plans. Because sometimes, yeah, it might take a couple of turns to move all the pieces into place, but by the time you do, a very importantly placed box might have been moved by an attack, or an enemy may have shifted somewhere where the ricochet beam is no longer going to go where you need it to, or the boss itself may have moved into a position where you're just not prepared to try to ricochet anything into it. So you can kind of wind up muddling around for a while trying to get things to go off the way that you want them to go off. But that said, it is still very satisfying to figure out as you go through it. And if you are, unlike me, someone who has a more puzzle-wired brain for this type of thing, I imagine it'll be even more satisfying for you. Now, of course, beyond the gameplay, we do have visual presentation, music, sound effects, all that type of stuff. And I have to say, I enjoy all of this. The story is relatively basic, absolutely. You know, there's a dragon that's treasure gets stolen and it decides to attack the kingdom and unleash monsters upon the land and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You have to be the intrepid group of adventurers that come together and find the treasure and bring it back to the dragon or slay the dragon to save the kingdom at the behest of the king, right? Easy. But what's interesting is our little fire witch that is our main character is, for lack of a better word, kind of a huge asshole. She's just a stuck-up noble princess whose family has fallen out of favor, and she's willing to do anything and everything that she needs to fix that. And that definitely leads to some very morally questionable acts as you progress through the campaign, which I was very surprised by and actually made me pretty interested in where the story was going to go with her and the rest of the cast. I mean, we're talking literally like fireballing one of the royal knights into a wall just to prevent him from leading your forces out of the crypt that you're currently in, which is collapsing. Only to then run off on her own and get stuck on a solo mission where she had to escape from a bunch of trolls by blasting apart boxes. Like, not only was it a cool gameplay change, it was just a really interesting little story beat that broke up what was otherwise a fairly standard gameplay loop and made me think, okay, all right, they're cooking here. They've got some ideas that I really enjoy. Graphically, the game has a very pleasant pixel art style that I really enjoy. It's lifelike, but simple. There's a lot of nice colors, good animations. There's actually a lot more life to it than you would expect from what is a relatively simple presentation style, and it made it very fun to watch the game in action. I mean, we already mentioned how cool it is to see all of the enemy and allied units start popping off and taking all their actions and moving around. It's really fun to watch. It's a very enjoyable game just in motion, and that's always an important thing in a turn-based game like this. The OST and sound effects are also very nice. You can hear some of the soundtrack as always in the background here as we're chatting, and it's simple but very effective, again, much like an old Super Nintendo style game, arcade game type thing like that, and the sound effects match that as well. The character sprites are simple but cute and expressive. For the price tag and what it has on offer, there's a lot that you can get out of this, and I think that anyone who decides to pick it up will definitely enjoy their time with Dark Pact. I know I certainly did. Even if it's in a section of the genre that is not my particular favorite, it is still very enjoyable, and that tells you a lot. If you're at all interested in checking out Dark Pact, it does have a demo currently available on Steam, and as mentioned, it is 10% off as well during the launch week, so you can check it out either way through there. And again, if you do, please do consider leaving a review for the developer. Reviews on any game, especially these small indie titles, are massively impactful for their success, and I think Crimson Gaze has a lot going on here that shows that he has an idea of how to make some good strategy gameplay, and I'd love to see him be able to make more stuff like this going forward into the future, whether it be supporting Dark Pact further or coming out with future titles. I certainly will be keeping an eye on what it is that he has going on and what his studio winds up potentially turning into, and thank you very much to him for providing me a key to the game. If you have any thoughts about Dark Pact, if you've played it for yourself or check it out after watching this video, do let me know in the comments down below. You can drop any criticism or critique that you have for both this video and the game in the comments as well. I look forward to reading them all. And of course, as always, thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to wrap this one up here. Thank you once again to my channel supporters. You can see all their names scrolling by on the right-hand side of the screen. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there, everybody. And remember, be good to each other, y'all. Bye now.